Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Perfect Faraday. I'm your host, Jeremiah Evans. Next to me here is George Merchant.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode. So, what are we talking about today?
Well, I have a very important question for you first. When you
Okay.
replace the toilet paper roll, over or under?
Over.
Good man, good
Over.
man.
Over. I had to think about it for a minute, but over, yeah.
Yeah, because if you do it under, you're a freaking monster.
You're a commie.
Yeah.
Just,
So,
just a statement of fact.
what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
Don't. So, is that what we're talking about today?
Yeah.
All right.
I guess I'll let you start since you kind of came up with the topic. I'm not sure what directions you want to go, but
We can
it's a very
we can start with
broad topic.
maybe defining love. I think that nowadays we use a lot of different words, and we use one word to describe many different things. I
Yeah.
said that backwards. So we're not specific enough, I think, when we use the word love, because we can say something like, I'd love to have a cheeseburger, or I love my job, or I love what I do, or I love my wife, or I love my children, I love my dog. I would hope that those
I love
things
turtles.
and I would hope that those things are different, very, very different things. So I thought I'd talk about, the subject of love, and is it easier to love or hate than, or one or the other? What's more rewarding, short term, long term? What does that lead us to? So, my thought process on it comes from, my youth, being very, very young. It's like I was blessed to see some pretty terrible things. A lot of people may not think that way, but when you see the darkness in the world, the light shines that much brighter. You're grateful. You're a lot more grateful for what you have. When you see people that are hurting, and then when you see them come out of it, like this, this wonderful change in their life, and the amount of love that spills from them, and gratitude and everything, it's just they shine a light. There's just these people in your life that you're just totally amazed by. So I've known people that have had very horrific things happen to them and are just absolutely loving people, and repeatedly things that have bad happened to them repeatedly, they've suffered, but they still are very loving people. They love other people. They really don't have a single enemy in their life, and I find it really interesting that nowadays it seems like hate's kind of the theme. Everybody's up in arms. I guess, we're in some sort of civil war now, and it definitely is a culture war for sure. And people are really, really angry. I've seen several posts from people I knew a long time ago. I guess I don't feel like I know them anymore, because of their attitude towards other people. It's not, like, I don't hate them. I definitely don't like the way they think, or at least I'm not in their head, but the way that they express themselves is very hateful, and it doesn't show any room for love at all when you're like that. So to me, love is a selfless thing. The real love, the agape love, there's a sense of sacrifice to it. Is that you're giving of yourself, you're opening yourself up to hurt, you're opening up yourself to betrayal, and what that leads to is a deeper understanding. When we talk about, everybody's searching for God, atheists, agnostics, whatever, everybody in their own way is searching for God, and they're all searching to fill that empty hole that they have inside them. And one of the things I learned when I was very young was a verse that was, to know God is to know love, or to love is to know God. 1 John 4:8, I believe. And I learned at a very young age, not just what was written, but by experiencing it, is the more that you love other people, the people that talk bad about you, your quote unquote enemies, the the people that are against you, the more you care for their well-being, and you want them to do good, and you want them to be happy, and you want them to experience love in their life and a peace in their life, then the more you do that, the closer you get to God, the closer you feel fulfilled in life. Can I explain that chemically? Probably not so easily. I usually like to stick with logical, explanations of things. But I believe that we have come to a place where the message needs to be revitalized. People need to hear a message of hope and of love and of peace. Love thy neighbor, love those that persecute you, and show things with a loving and giving heart. I know it's tough, especially nowadays when people are so vitriolic, and they're attacking each other online, attacking each other within their families now, and a lot of it's over politics, which is just terrible to me. It's just absolutely terrible. It's like, why can't you let go of these political ideologies, or at least just respect somebody else's political ideology and let it lie and say that's just the way that they think? Maybe one day they'll come to the truth. Or, because people could think that about me, or I could think that about them and stuff, but still care about the person, right? Like, there's plenty of people that don't agree with me politically that I absolutely love, and I will always love them. Because once I love somebody, I will always love them. You don't, when you love somebody, there's never turning that off. You will always care about that person. When you care about somebody, it's not going to stop. You're always going to care about them when you truly love them. You may not be able to be around them. They may become destructive. They may become self-destructive, abusive. There's, many different reasons why you may have to distance yourself from them, and you're still going to love them, and you may have to love them from afar, but you're going to love them, no matter what. Once you do, you do. And if in the past, I was looking at, I probably should have pulled up that chart. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and do that right now. Let me go ahead and switch on over while you guys are with me here. Go ahead and switch on over, and you guys can, this is love right there. See that, guys? See that? That's love.
Perfect dog.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're just going to...
I understand.
Yeah. What we're going to just Google is, I'm going to Google marriage rates. Rates.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead, Jerry. You can, while I'm doing this.
I feel terrible. Like, obviously, like, this is the part of, hold on. So don't, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the chart I was...
I come unprepared today.
Cookies.
Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrong, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8.
Yeah.
What's the other one? What is it? Faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love.
Yes, the three eternal
it's Corinthians.
things.
I can't find it right now.
The three eternal things. There's the three eternal things according to the Bible is faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love.
Yeah.
So,
I've never been super religious, but I always liked that passage.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because I've always felt like true love. And then let me just introduce this before you. So, the Bible has three? I'm sure there's more, but the three loves: Eros, which is Cupid in Roman.
It's more clearly defined.
Sexual, like sexual desire for somebody, and then there's Philia, which is bond of affection for group, like, you know, loving your fellow man, and then agape is the highest form of love, which is basically Jesus's love, right? You know, for the world, like for mankind, for everything.
sacrificial. Yeah.
It's something that to strive for. Like, I think anymore. I mean, I'm a deeply flawed person, and I'm very negative, but I feel like I strive, especially in this day and age, you know, seeing people hurting, like. I feel like I want to, you know, like find the goodness in everybody, you know, like it's a good path to follow, you know, whether you believe Jesus was whatever, you know, like the Bible like extols him as or not.
Yeah.
Like he's a good archetype of.
Yeah, when I talk to people that are agnostic or atheist, one of the things that I try to do is I try to approach it from a logical view. I mean, I present the things that I've learned, but I do try to present it from a logical view, not a mystical view, as to why these things are good logically. I'm making an appeal to mankind in it, you know, and in an unknowing mind, right? So I'm trying to make a logical appeal. So the values that you're talking about are good values, whether you believe them or not, as part of being a Christian, they still are great values, and they really help to form a very healthy society. Those biblical values do, and again, whether you believe it to be true or not, then you know that's really it's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
You know, to me it is personally, but to society, that's really neither here nor there. I've never
spent a whole lot of time reading the Bible, but I've always like respected it and other religious teachings. But it's annoying to me on the other end when you have somebody agnostic that just like anything religious text, especially Bible or Christianity, is like, oh, why do they got to do this? Why do they say that? Like, well, really, is it such a bad thing? You know, like to love your fellow man, or you know, just whatever. Like,
well, obviously, yeah.
Like some of the basic tenets of a God-fearing religion. You know.
Yeah, I really do believe that love is an answer to a lot of things. Now, as hokey as that sounds, I mean that might sound really
well, in a more
hokey,
Christ-like love, or however, you know, like I said, as an archetype, if nothing else, you know, like loving your fellow man.
Yeah. So I brought up a chart here. Let me just go ahead and pull it up for everybody to see right there. So I brought up this chart, and the reason I brought this up was because of the marriage rates, the decline in the marriage rates. And I believe that people are not losing the ability, but losing the desire to love. I believe that it's become easier to, much easier to just self-satisfy and look out for yourself, and really kind of are like pushing, you know, marriage away from them. And I know there's other political and legal reasons. I know the manosphere is going to yell at me and everything like that, and I know that the both sides of that argument hate me. The manosphere hate me, and the feminists hate me because I'm a traditional person, and my opinions on these things are just founded in historical, factual, you know, evidence of what's healthy.
How dare you have an opinion if you don't agree with me?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to.
We just need to stop talking right now.
I'm not allowed to have an opinion.
Podcast over, guys.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go dye my hair blue and.
You know, I've only been married for over 20 years now, and it was not easy. And my wife would tell you the same thing.
I can tell you.
It's not an easy thing.
I haven't been married, but I've definitely seen other people's marriages.
Oh yeah, yep. And
I won't speak too much on it, but I know
divorce
it's up and down.
Divorce rates are very, very high, and I believe that what people are looking for is they have a set of expectations that can never be met, and because that other person doesn't fill that hole in them, then they're like, this must not be the one, and then after a while they become miserable.
Touches on a subject when you mention it to me that I thought of, like the people think it's hokey, like nobody else can love you if you can't love yourself. But there's some wisdom in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that I would say
Yeah.
if you can't respect yourself and it's not settling, like don't have such high expectations, but also respect yourself enough that like you don't. Because definitely a lot of people in my life have like fell into relationships with stuff and they've just like let things go that were completely toxic, and they either needed to address it much sooner, you know.
Yep. I mean,
or,
trust me.
Or just let it go,
20 years of marriage,
and find their happiness.
I made all those mistakes.
Yeah.
I made all those mistakes, and
it's funny. I'm sorry.
I
I'll
think
let you finish.
everybody does.
But people always say, "Oh, you don't have kids, you can't have an opinion on this. Oh, you haven't been married, you have an opinion." That's funny because I think in a lot of things in life, and I mean, why do people go to counselors? A third party outside observer or whatever can see stuff that people in it can't,
Yep.
Now, if they're completely negative and destructive, when, stuff needs to be built up or that, I can see where that's a bad thing, but.
Oh, yeah. And so.
But yeah, you were talking about mistakes you made in your marriage.
Oh, yeah. So the marriage rates, and I want to encourage people to get married, and this is like a numbers game. Like, I know not everybody's going to get married, and I know that it's not going to always work out, and there's going to be things that happen, and I know that spouses pass away. It's very, very sad. I had a very, very close friend of mine whose wife passed away recently that it's very near and dear to my heart. They knew each other since they were like 8 or 9 years old or something like that. They've been sweethearts their whole life. He's an older gentleman. And it was, he was with the same woman for 60 to 70 years, something like that, 68 years or something like that. It was crazy. And, she was his whole world, outside of his relationship with God, outside of his Christian faith and his love for God. It was, and that's the thing that sustained him through the pain. But it was so beautiful. When you talk to people like that and everything, it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing that I want to encourage other people to find that person to work through the tough stuff with, that you can get to the other side of that stuff, because there's going to be tough times. There's going to be financial hardships. You're going to go through some tough stuff with it. But you know what? It's better to go through that with somebody and love them. Just love them unconditionally. And like I said, I know that marriage is not going to be for everybody, but in general, I'm going to say, hey, there's some people aren't made for marriage. That's just the facts of it. But I do believe that the vast majority of the population should seek that, or should at least have some sort of desire or want for that. I believe that because of our legal system and the way things have worked out for men in the legal system, a lot of men don't want to get married anymore. And so I referenced this chart, and you look at the from 1990, up to 2020. So it's not even the very latest data or whatever. You notice that, and we probably see after this, I imagine you see a little bit of a spike up, because
I imagine 2020 might have dropped considerably just because it was
a lot of stuff got canceled and pushed
hard
off.
to get married.
Because
so
of all the lockdowns, and a lot of people want the ideal perfect marriage, and that's another thing. I think
venues were closed down, and once they opened back up, they were swamped.
And I think that's another thing that people need to get their mind off of this, that they got to spend $20,000, $30,000, $100,000, whatever it is, on a wedding and stuff. And I think they need to focus in on the character and the person that they are entering into the marriage. Because if you're entering into that marriage with that kind of spend or debt, I think you're already setting yourself up for severe hardship. And
it's weird. I don't think it's even a modern thing, because going back, even ancient cultures, there was a lot of money spent, for marriage or for,
there'd be a
dowry or whatever.
Yeah, there'd be like a party and stuff. But you know
but
what?
especially nowadays, it's like all that money's thrown away just in the marriage. Like
Poor people got married too.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, some people have these extravagant marriages and go into crippling debt.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going to the justice of the peace.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. Your commitment, I think, is what matters. And I believe that going forward, I'd love to see our culture have like more of a recommitment to love. And it's not just about marriage. I talk about marriage here and stuff because that's something that's close and dear to me. But it extends beyond that. It extends to the other people in your life, and those that are outside that. Yeah, I know it's a little bit harder to care about people that you don't really know, but you should want that for everybody. You should want that good for everybody.
Yeah.
Because that's going to make for a much healthier society. That's going to make for a society where people aren't flipping each other's bird, getting road rage and angry, because what it is their mind is in a negative place. And to going back to when I first asked, which is easier, love or hate?
Did you actually ask that?
Yeah, at the very beginning when we first started the video, talking about love and hate, or maybe I didn't ask it. But
see, I don't think you did. I think we got sidetracked.
Which one's easier, love or hate? Well, I would argue that hate is easier. I would argue that hate is much, much easier.
Yeah.
And it has a short-term reward to it. Okay, and I think it's of a biological nature, is that when we're in the Serengeti getting chased by a lion, and we've got to man up, chat up on that thing or whatever, and we got to fight for our life. It gives us that adrenaline, and it tickles that lizard brain in just the right way. I watched some really interesting studies on this. That's why the anger clickbait stuff gets more traffic.
Yeah.
Is because there's a chemical reaction that you actually become addicted to. Mild anger is more addictive than happiness and joy. Yeah. And that to me is a terrible thing that we need to realize about our human nature. So we have to try to fight against the biological nature of that and say, okay, look, we know we're being manipulated. Don't click on this stuff. Don't allow it to, work me up and everything. And I want to have good, meaningful, caring conversation with my peers and people. I know online's full of a bunch of trolls, and you're not going to be able to control that space. But I think that those in your life you can reach out to, you can talk to, and you can touch in a good way, and start letting go of some of this anger. Because anger is much, much easier, and and you get there much faster. Love takes work.
So, on an individual level, somebody you meet for the first time, you think it's easier to hate them than to love them?
If you are in, okay, so you just met them. My nature is to immediately try to care about them. That's in my nature, but
I guess I should define love. Like, obviously, like, you're not gonna have like strong feelings.
I think it's harder to hate somebody.
I think it really depends on the person's mindset, but like,
what about set and setting? What about set and setting? Think about that for a minute. Online, when somebody argues with you, is it easier to love or hate them? In person, is it easier to love or hate them? That's different, right?
Well, and soldiers that go to war, like they have to like shut off something, to kill them, like or police officers or that, like in an instance, like I wouldn't say that in that instance they necessarily hate or love. It's the lizard brain, the fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
The reason I ask that is because I think it's easier to, love mankind and try to see the goodness in anybody like that you approach initially.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that that's easier in the long run than, at least on your psyche, than choosing to hate everybody that you come across just because they say something you didn't like in that moment or whatever, you know, because you're just going to build resentment, and then the next person that you think looks like that person or says some similar things, you're going to just write them off, you know? Like, it seems like in the long run, to me, it's a lot more work to hate people. But maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's my weird opinion on that.
No, I guess it might depend on personality type and stuff too.
Yeah.
But I think it's easier to stay angry. I think it's easier to be
we use
angry.
our past, like, you know, in that example, like.
Yeah, and
we use our past.
Health wise, you're you know, you're physically, I'd say we're going to take, you know, short term to long term. Short term, I think it's easier to be angry. You're going down the road, somebody cuts you off or whatever. It's much easier to be angry than it is to control.
Well, what do you think is better for your body? Like,
obviously,
serotonin or cortisol? Like, on a regular basis.
Good point. So I would argue that long term, you know, and I think most people would probably agree with me on this. Long term, having a forgiving, loving attitude as much as possible, filling your life with that as much as possible, your health is going to be better. Your health is absolutely going to be better. It's going to affect you physically. Whereas in being angry and agitated easily and all the time, including on the road, you know, that's one of the things is like, I don't really like to be in a car with somebody that yells a lot at the traffic or gets angry really, really easy and everything like that. Because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's going to make a mistake on the road and everything. So it's better to just view them as another you on the road that's made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
And that goes with many of these type of things. And if you're dealing with somebody, you know, on Facebook or whatever, I was going to say Twitter, but just don't bother that cesspool. But, you know, say you're dealing with an old friend or something like that, I would just deal with them in kindness. Just be kind to them and say, you know, agree to disagree. I don't hate you. Just, I don't agree with you, but I wish you the best. You know, and that's been sort of my approach for the most part. Not that I haven't made mistakes, but that's been pretty much my approach very consistently throughout my life, is that I'm not trying to burn bridges. I'm not trying to hurt people. Because you have to break that cycle. And sometimes that means you're taking a bit of a whooping for something that somebody else did. You know, it's usually just verbal anyway. You know, it's normally somebody's angry or somebody's upset, and it does affect you, but you can take a little bit of it. You know, you're made of tougher stuff. Yeah. So somebody, you know, kind of, you know, unwinds or whatever around you, and they're angry about it, something, and maybe you're just talking calmly, and you're like, you know, just like, hey, you know, I hope you don't feel that way forever, or, you know, I wish you the best or whatever, because people's attitudes have gone to the negative in a great way recently in our culture. Yeah. You see it in the movies, you see it in media, you see it, these people are enemies, extremist, and, you know, just angry. The cancel culture, everything is about angry. Everything is about punishing somebody. It's all about punishing somebody. Yeah. And I want us to have a culture of lifting people up. Yeah. You know, lifting people up, all of mankind, everybody, every color, every race, religion, just lifting people up, political belief, just lifting them up, and being loving towards them. Because right now in our society, we've gotten to a point where hate is the currency. Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but when they discovered that angry clickbait articles gets more traffic, much more traffic than let me see if I can Google that. I mean, now that we've got this working, people might notice our layout's a little bit different, and that's because we moved upstairs into our classroom where I do technical training.
Hopefully our audio is a little bit better.
Hopefully our audio is a little bit better and stuff.
So I guess while you're looking that up, I'll
yes, please. I mean,
if you want to switch to me real quick. or that works too. I don't.
No, I'll switch to you.
So I don't know how much you've like delved into the thought that there is no selfless act. You know, it's an interesting like bit of philosophy. I mean, they even like go so much as to say like Mother Teresa and that and Gandhi, you know, weren't selfless. I just bring it up because people that are like people pleasers, you know, like that want the world to love them, like they get crushed. Like I've had a bit of that in my life, even though that's probably hard for people to believe, you know. I feel like people that are people pleasers are looking for acceptance, you know. So I would I guess I'm like losing my train of thought. Maybe I'll let you finish like looking at your thing because
Well, I'm trying to get rid of the pop-ups.
yeah, well before you switch to it, let me just like
Oh, okay, go ahead.
so yeah, like people that are people pleasers, you know, I feel like a lot of times are looking for more acceptance, and that's kind of the argument that there is no like selfless act, you know, even if you volunteer. And I'm not speaking out against it. It's a whole philosophical thing. I can't remember like what you'd even need to look up. Obviously, the people would argue that Jesus was completely selfless because he sacrificed himself, you know, for the world, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah,
fundamentals of Christianity.
Yeah, I would
But I'm
fundamentally.
going to leave him out of it because that's not even a debate or argument I'm trying to have. I'm just saying from a philosophical standpoint, we're all like broken humans. And even if we give all of ourselves, like if we don't take care of ourselves too, you know, I guess the plain mask thing, you know, like help yourself before you can help somebody else.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point I'm getting at, because you have people that genuinely do care about everybody around them, and they can feel very empty inside, you know, when they don't have reciprocation, because they are looking for acceptance, you know. But if they're not taking care of the needs, you know,
Yeah.
that's like missing internally, like that can be damaging too. So I don't, if you need to switch to the other scene.
So what I brought up was, you know, this was an article written in 2019, and there's actually several things on, you know, Google. You could just hate gets more clicks or whatever. It's a whole thing, and basically, you know, hate clicks are the new clickbait. This is back in 2019, and it really actually started before then. People had figured it out, but what it is that anger gets us to react. It gets us to take action.
Yeah.
So we click on it. That's our action, basically.
Yeah.
So, and that this is probably around the time that I believe that CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, you know, just all of your mainstream media sources started switching to pretty much just rage bait articles and headlines, because that's what got traffic, because they were watching their numbers get, you know, eaten alive. You know, newspapers got eaten alive by the internet, and then pretty much, you know, at that point it's all about attention. I watched a marketing video, and a day before yesterday I watched a marketing video, and it was about, he said, show me where the attention is and I'll show you where to sell, and I'll ruin that place. He was being truthful, but
Yeah.
you know, making a joke too. He's like, I'll ruin that place with advertisements, because that's where the people's attention are. He talked about like Twitch streaming and stuff like that, like how many young people are there, so you could target that demographic easier. And there's, you know, where their attention is. So how do you get people's attention? Well, they'd figured out that you know, negative emotions actually get people's attention more than positive emotions do.
Yeah.
And anger, being the better of them all, would get you to click on something. So if you see an article that says bad man kicks puppy, you know what I mean, or bad man does bad thing, and insert like, you know, Trump supporter does this thing or whatever, or something like that, you're going to click on the article, you know, to be angry. Or, you know, if you're on the other side, you know, liberal, you know, teaches underage kids about, whatever, you know what I'm saying? You're much more likely to get angry and click on this article, right?
Yeah.
So you're being manipulated, and I believe the first step in breaking away from that is to know that you're being manipulated, accept that you're being manipulated, and stop clicking on a lot of this stuff. If it's not truly newsworthy stuff, if all you're doing is having just an emotional reaction to it, don't click on it. Just scroll past it. And that way you're robbing them of that. You're denying them that.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I'm going to spend, because, we're very busy, if I'm going to spend some time, and I do need to consume a certain amount of news, I got to stay up to date with stuff. If I'm going to consume the news, I want to know, like, what's our economic numbers going to look like? What's, what I want to know the factual stuff, right? What's going on in the world? What's going on in our country? What kind of supply chain problems are we having? This kind of thing. Like, I want to know the factual stuff so that, like, I can react appropriately in my business and personal finances.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and listen to people talk about, oh, this side's so bad. He did bad thing. He did bad thing.
Yeah.
They did good thing. They said good thing. They said good thing. They said good thing, as Tim Pool would say. And I think that we are kind of in this, like, kind of terrible spot now where we have consumed, rage bait articles and media for so long. And I'm even knowing about it, I've tried to limit myself for years to that stuff. Has still been affected by it. I mean, it's still influenced.
What's
me,
the
sure.
old adage? You are what you eat. Well, I think your mental thing is there's a similar thing to say about, like, what you consume.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Is how you're going to approach things.
Or as a couple of programmers, good data in, good data out, bad data in, bad data out, man. I mean, that's just the way of it.
So to compare and contrast the two ideas, like, obviously it's not great to be angry all the time and hate everything, and it's probably hard to dig yourself out of that. But that's why I brought up the thing about people that are like people pleasers that, like, try to do good in the world, and a lot of times they don't feel fulfilled. And you if you can have an intimate conversation, they might be some of the most hurting inside people. It's because they don't. Like, I guess I'm not going to say it's outright good to get angry, but we are, like, human beings. We need to embrace all of our emotions, like, equally, not be too much one way or another. I mean, I've addressed this with you, and you've before, because I know you're very, giving and try. But there's a lot of times that I know that there's stuff that's not, like, fulfilled, or, like, you're mad about something you just don't want to let out because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or something. But what's some, because I've noticed since I've come to work for you that, like, you've actually been able to embrace some of that. I mean, I know that your faith, like, helps you with that, but what's some other ways? Like, what's some healthy outpouring, or whatever, like, to address your pent-up anger, because you can't just keep it inside.
Don't be angry when you address it.
Well, yeah, that's true.
One of the things is, like, I would recommend it to people is don't be, like, if your spouse, loved one, friend, coworker, whatever it is, approach it with kindness. If they've done something that's hurtful or really upsetting, one of the ways of approaching that is to approach it with kindness. Just to approach it with kindness.
So basically, you're also saying communication, not keeping it
Absolutely,
inside.
yeah. Well, I would say that stopping and thinking about something and meditating on it is not a negative thing, because people are like, don't hold it in, don't pin it up. I'm like, but don't react right away either.
No, I'm not saying that, but that's definitely a healthy way of not holding it in, holding the anger in. I recommend what my thought philosophy on it is praise in public, damn in private. Have private conversations with people if it's a touchy type of situation, and approach it with kindness. Like, approach it with love. Like
so they can sense, they can tell that, like, look, they care about you, but this thing, kind of bothered them or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, hey, Jeremiah, you took the last Diet Dr. Pepper. I mean, obviously I wouldn't be upset about that, but I just say I was. Man, you took the last Diet Dr. Pepper. That's the only thing I drink besides water or whatever,
Yeah.
This is a fictional, I love Diet Dr. Pepper, but this is a
kinda
fictional
not
story.
Fictional. Because
So-
I fixate on things, and if they go missing,
So for me, yeah, but it doesn't upset me. These
I
things
know.
don't
I'm just
upset
saying,
me.
for me, like that would probably upset me in the moment, and I'd have definitely addressed that
So
in not so healthy ways before. So
So for me is, I stop and I make sure I'm not reacting in anger, and then I wait, and then I'll have a conversation with somebody, and I'll be like, hey man, that was my last one or whatever, or something like that. And I was like, if you really, if you really wanted it, could you have at least told me about it first or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mean. I wouldn't come across as jaded or angry or whatever, anything like that. I'd just be like, it's okay, just let me know. That way I can go get another one or something like that. But I think that a lot of people, in their mind, they work up an argument in their head because
Yeah.
they stay angry about it
Yeah.
and they don't address it instead of calming themselves down first. So, and that's the difference between letting it fester and meditating on it and coming up with a better solution, a better way to word. One of my favorite things is it's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt, right?
Yeah.
So I'd much rather people just be like, oh, he's just over there brooding or quiet or whatever or something, when no, there's a lot going on upstairs. It's just I don't want to make a situation worse.
Yeah.
And all of our little interactions create ripples throughout society.
Yeah.
The way I treat you affects the way that you treat the next person, right?
Yeah.
And how am I painting the world with my actions? Am I acting in kindness and love? Am I spreading that? And are we all doing that? Are we all, lifting people up? Are we all, loving other people? Are we all caring about other people? Well, obviously not. Obviously not. But the negative effects seem to travel very, very quickly, especially nowadays. But they seem to travel much faster, and people get so angry that even the truth, they get mad at and angry even at the truth because they're so stuck in their anger. You could give them, you could give them $1 million to stop thinking that way, and they still won't stop thinking that way.
I guess that sparks a thought in my mind of something that I've fallen into, and sometimes in my life, I've actually been happier. It's drive out the trauma in your life. Like literally today, I had an experience with somebody, and I had asked about somebody else because I went to one of my favorite restaurants. I was like, oh, we're such and such, because I hadn't been there in a month or two. And they started to tell me, oh, well, that was the whole thing. I was like, I don't need the drama. I don't need the hot goss or whatever, because I pushed away the negativity there, because I've been really negative lately, and I've been, trying to get back to the person I've been, before. It's so easy to fall into negativity, especially when you've lived in that for a long time. And I feel like even some of our podcasts, I've maybe been a little bit negative,
Well, you're right. It's easy to fall into negative thought processes and get stuck in that way of thinking. It's like a spiral. It's like a downward spiral.
Yeah.
But you can catch yourself and you can walk yourself out of it. And I know exactly what you're talking about, because we'll go into plants or something, and somebody be really negative sometimes right off the bat, because they're down, they're frustrated, they're angry, they're blaming so and so and everything like that. And I'll just be like, don't worry about it. We're gonna get you taken care of. We're gonna get you fixed, get up and running, and we do, right?
Yeah.
That's the way we work. Well, then everybody's mood's a little bit better, because all of a sudden it's like, the solution's here, right?
Yeah.
We provide that solution. Then I try to take the opportunity to joke a little bit with them and
Yeah.
make them smile and stuff because
Yeah, that's always been my go-to. But
yeah, and bring up the spirit a little bit so that you can kind of wipe out that negativity because somebody will be coming over there and saying, you know, just moaning about somebody else and just in my ear and everything, and I don't like that negativity. I really don't like it. It makes me sick to my stomach.
it's funny, I don't either.
Do not
but
like that
I've-
negativity at
I've-
all.
I'm one just as easy to fall into it because it just feels like strangely good in the moment sometimes.
I think
you know?
that's what it is. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I think it feels. It's like self. You know, like you feel. I don't know if it's the adrenaline or whatever it is that's doing it to you, but you feel justified in feeling that way,
Yeah.
and you feel kind of a giddy feeling, and I believe that that's sort of addictive to kind of stay in that sort of mindset and
Yeah.
a very negative mindset. But if you can break out of that but what it's doing to everybody else around you, because it's sacrificing everybody else's peace around you, right?
Yeah.
Like we've all worked around that really negative person, right? That one that just
Yeah, you've worked with me quite a bit.
angry all the time, just negative about things all the time. And, you know, you're just like, man. And then every so often they might come into work and they're like in this really good mood or something, like one day out of 300. And you're like, oh man, they whatever happened for them is good, you know, because they're in a better mood or whatever. But you realize that those people just live in misery when they're always in that spot.
Yeah.
So if you can be a light to them, if you can show them love, if you can show them grace, if you can be that kind of person around them, it's amazing what you can get through to people. I've been able to get through to everybody my whole life.
Yeah.
I've worked with people that nobody else could work with.
Yeah.
And
I've always been
yeah.
really good with people that like everybody couldn't stand, like bosses and stuff.
Yeah, same here. I pretty much, I can get along with everybody,
Yeah.
you know?
And I've worked with some pretty toxic attitudes, and I've played into it sometimes, and sometimes but I can usually get along, you know.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
But it is a little bit harder when there's somebody like, me bringing everybody down.
Well, and, I also don't believe it's an age dependent thing too.
Yeah.
I believe that I think some people grow older and wiser, and they learn the truths of these. They learn these truths, but over time. But I've also noticed that there's some young people that are very optimistic and positive.
Yeah.
And good. And I've also noticed some young people
it's kind of sad
that
to
are
me in this
nihilistic.
day and age. It's got to be dauntingly hard for the younger crowd.
Yeah, it's
to see
it's tough
an
road.
optimistic future.
Yeah, but
I mean, the last three, under 20 people that we've hired, I felt like their desperation,
Mm-hmm.
in this world or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to, I don't know, are we a more compassionate, age group? Because I feel like some of the generations before us is like, oh, pull yourselves up by the bootstraps. But I mean, I feel like a lot of people in our generation now, realizes, I guess because we saw, how it became more of a, not an uphill linear battle, but
I think it's because we've lived through several financial downturns now. We've gone through the stripping of our manufacturing base. We've gone through, and so the older generation has gone through some of that as well, but they were more established. Obviously, they were further along. But because of inflation on basic necessities, food, homes, healthcare,
yeah,
those basic things. Everything else, all the unnecessary things got cheaper, but the technology got much cheaper. I mean, we're here doing a podcast that in 1980 for this kind of equipment you'd had to spend $1 million.
yeah,
and here we are doing it for pretty dirt cheap.
yeah.
Whereas, so the technology's gotten cheaper, but food's not gotten cheaper. And
Yeah.
recently it's gotten much more expensive.
so many things
to
that's-
just exist has gotten
the necessities
financially
in
harder.
life have gotten exponentially more expensive, and the
Yeah.
things that you don't need
Yeah.
have gotten cheaper.
Yeah.
And like how is that sustainable? You know?
Yeah. So for the young people, like I believe that for the young people, yeah, I think we recognize our generation, the Gen Xers.
Yeah.
I think we do recognize that a little bit more. We do see that a little bit more. I do believe that both things can be true though, right? I believe that you need to buckle down and work hard, but it's okay to also recognize that it's harder than it was, right?
Yeah.
Like to own a home now is going to be much harder than it was previously. However, why does everybody feel like they need to have a $350,000 house starting out?
Yeah.
That was never a thing when I was younger either.
Oh,
You know,
I agree.
so-
That's always been like an argument, but now
Expectations are
like,
different.
even the low end houses like seem out of reach to somebody that's even really trying. You know.
Yeah. I guess it depends on where you are. in
You
your
have
career,
to have
too.
a whole lot of personal sacrifice, like a whole lot more now than in the past. You know,
Well-
like starting out and not having experience. You know.
And hey man, that goes back to love. Like I tell people, like, you know, if you take a look at the numbers, you're much more likely to be financially successful if you're married.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Yeah.
sort of indicators is
Well,
you get married, you stay married, you stay dedicated to each other. And
I mean, the future is the younger generations. What can we do? Like, you know, love for mankind, compassion for mankind. What's something we can do to like help the younger crowd? You know, like so that our civilization doesn't completely collapse. You know, 2 generations from now, or even sooner. You know.
really, we got to get the message out about, you know, hope and love and hard work.
Yeah.
Hard work, yeah. And not hard work just for the sake of hard work, okay? Even though there's a goodness to that. There is a goodness. There's a goodness to
Yeah. Well, I
to
guess if
getting
a lot
hard
more
work.
people were contributing to the system and
Producing.
yeah, like maybe stuff would come down, but like there's got to be some culpability on the top end that wants to just siphon, you know, like every little bit drop of blood, you know, from middle to lower class, you
Yeah.
know, too.
Yeah, I
Without
agree.
getting too much into that, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree. But, yeah, you know, I don't want to get too far off topic or whatever,
yeah,
but the
I just threw that
the
in there
message-
because that's something we could be thinking about, you know.
the
like,
message of love, and I think it's important for the young too as well, is to talk about it and talk about it in a meaningful way and be specific, right? We're
Yeah.
not talking about the love of, you know, your favorite pet or the love of you know, your car or the desires of wealth or anything like that. It's more like the love of other human beings, the self-sacrificing, giving type of love is like if you have a better attitude and you work hard, you will make more money.
yeah,
Okay, that's a fact. Now, you also do have to, you know, stand up for yourself and not allow yourself to be taken advantage of, but you're recognizing that your employer or your customer is getting more value out of what you're doing than the work that you're putting in, right? So, because they have to make a profit. So, whatever that is, you want to add value to whatever you're doing. You want to add value. So when you go into the job, there's a certain degree, once you've learned how to love, once you've learned like that attitude and being a loving person, you realize that there's a certain amount of sacrifice in the things you do. And you do these things with love in your heart. What ends up happening is it ends up encompassing your life. And people pick up on that. But my customers, I've never lost a customer.
Yeah.
I've had to fire a couple of customers, but I've never lost a customer. And one of the reasons I believe that is, and I'm not going to say it's never going to happen, but I believe one of the reasons what it is that when we're doing work for them, they know and they sense that, hey, this person is trying to add value. You know, he knows we're getting more out of this than he's getting out of this.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to milk them for every dime they're worth. It's not about going in and trying to make $1 million on a job. It's about like, hey, what's the best value? Because there's plenty of times where we've had customers, and you've been there, where they were about ready to slap that checkbook out and, well, let's go ahead and spend $100,000 on upgrading this thing or whatever. And we're like, this $450 solution actually takes care of you.
Yeah.
Love to have the money, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to do you wrong like that. Yeah. Because in our field, there's a lot of ways that we can go about, having a solution to something. You ask the person, okay, how many more years are you going to keep this machine? Okay, you're only going to keep the machine 5 to 7 more years. All you need is a few spare parts with some backups on it and everything. We'll take care of that for you. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You don't need to spend 6 figures, to do something to something you're not going to even keep that long.
Yeah.
So when you have a more giving attitude like that, people are always they're always going to want to interact with you too, because it feels good to be around somebody like that. And that's the kind of person that you want to be. I'm not perfect or anything. I'm not trying to make this sound like everything I do is in love or anything like that. I make mistakes, I mess up. But I believe that the message of doing everything in love, you strive towards it.
Yeah. Like
scriptures, you strive towards it, knowing you're going to fall short, but doing everything in your power to try to strive towards that perfection. Like, I'm going to love, okay? And one other verse before we go. One other verse that God said, and when God speaks in the scripture, it always comes with a very, very powerful message. So most of the message is written in there, or it's not written as God said, whatever.
Yeah.
But this was God said, how can you say that you love me, a God that you cannot see, if you can't say that you love your neighbor that you can see?
Yeah.
So even God is not asking for you to love him without loving. So think about that for the atheist and the agnostic out there, is that in the scripture, in the Bible, is a claim of God saying, how can you even say that you love me, that this invisible idea that you have to have faith in and believe in, and not love your neighbor? Because I know there's plenty of Christians out there that can be, pretty nasty.
Yeah.
But I think it's very, very important that we follow through, as a person of faith. How do I show the world that my faith is worth a damn, right? That means anything at all. It's through the application of love. It's through showing that love, and you can't fake it. You can't fake it. There's no faking it. That's one of the things that I think people have a really good sense for, but you can't fake it because it will show out in very short order. But when you care about other people, when you love them, it shows in your actions. Yeah. It shows in your self-sacrifice, and you're willing to sacrifice of yourself. So I think we're pretty close. Did you want to say anything else before we go?
I had one more thought as far as the younger crowds. Like, it might be compassionate not to like flaunt all the nice things you have as an older generation, like when they struggle to even like feed themselves or that, like help them understand, don't chase after the Joneses, like, because I see a lot of younger people like spend money like crazy on the wants and not the needs, and that's hard to do when you're like starting out, it's a progression,
Oh yeah. And it's a hard habit to break too. There's rich people that end up, broke because of it. So, you want to take us out?
Just ask kindly that you think for yourself with anything important to you. Thanks for watching us. Like, subscribe, and share. Leave us a comment, maybe. Tell us how we're right or wrong, or what you think.
Love each other.
Yeah. Thank y'all.
Thank you.